Hello everybody and welcome to our Connect resource. If you're sitting in a Connect group right now, I hope you're having a wonderful time. Or maybe it's your first time, welcome to you. Perhaps you're joining us online. As a church at the moment, we are going through a series through the Gospel of John. I really enjoy the book of John. Over the last 2 weeks, we have been in John 1. Week 1, John is revealing who Jesus is. And last week, we looked at Jesus being the Lamb of God. This week, we found ourselves in the passage in John 1, verse 35, where Jesus calls his first disciples to follow him. And we see from early on that our walk as believers is best done in community. And Jesus demonstrated this throughout the Gospels. He always took someone with him on this journey. And he says these words to his disciples, "Follow me." Now, when I thought of those words, "follow me," the first thing, I'm going to be honest, that popped into my mind was the movie Finding Nemo. I don't know if you watched it before. I was shocked when I looked it up and saw that it came out 20 years ago. I felt very old in that moment, but I remember being 10 years old and I got a new puppy, and that movie came out around the same time, and I named my puppy Nemo. That's how much I enjoyed the movie. But there's this scene in the movie. What happens is there's a dad fish and a son, and these two fish get separated in a big ocean, and the little fish, Nemo, ends up in a fish tank. And all of a sudden, he finds himself in this new community. And there's this scene where it's nighttime, and this little shrimp swims up to him and says in this French accent, "Follow me." And I don't know why, but that really stuck out to me. And what happens after that is that Nemo gets welcomed into this community within this fish tank, and he finds new friends. And when we look at this passage here, Jesus is calling the first into his community. And I'm going to pick up in 1 John 35. It says, "The next day, John was there again with 2 of his disciples. When he saw Jesus passing by, he said, 'Look, the Lamb of God.' And when the 2 disciples heard him say this, they followed Jesus. Turning around, Jesus saw them following and asked, 'What do you want?' And they said, 'Rabbi,' which means teacher, 'where are you staying?' And Jesus replies, 'Come, and you will see.'" The first point I'd like to make is that when we follow Jesus, we find Jesus. You see, in this encounter, I love the fact that Jesus extends an invite. He doesn't get dismayed by the fact that they're following him or try and shoo them away, but he says, come see where I say. And isn't that so true to Jesus today? He invites us in as well. He extends that same invite. The disciples didn't need a theology degree to follow him. They didn't need past exam papers so that they would know all the right things to say or do. They didn't even need a t-shirt. They just needed to come as they were, and then by spending time with him, they are changed from the inside out. The second thing we see is that Jesus calls our name and he gives us a future. Later on in this passage, we see that Andrew, the one disciple we just read about, goes and fetches his brother Simon. Now he too is extending an invite to come and follow Jesus. And Simon comes before Jesus, and Jesus, in verse 42, says, "He looked at him and said, 'You are Simon, son of John. You will be called Cephas,' which when translated is Peter." That word Peter means rock. And when you read about Peter in the other Gospels, you see that Peter makes a lot of mistakes in the years to come. But I love the fact that Jesus calls his name, calls him out of the place that he is. He renames him and he calls him rock, not based on what he's going to do in the next few years, but based on actually what he will do in the years to come. Because Peter was integral in the establishment of the church later on. The third thing we see is that Jesus knows us personally. Later on in this chapter 1, we read about Nathanael, the next disciple that Jesus calls. And there's this beautiful encounter where Nathanael comes before Jesus and he says, "How do you know me?" Nathanael asked. And Jesus says, "I saw you while you were still under the fig tree before Philip called you." And then Nathanael declared, "Rabbi, you are the Son of God. You are the King of Israel." Now, I don't know why Nathanael was under that fig tree or why it was so significant for him. But for some reason, when Jesus said those words, "I saw you while you were there. I saw you perhaps while you were sitting there in pain, when you were sitting there questioning, when you were feeling alone. I saw you under that fig tree and I'm calling you now." What a beautiful thing that Jesus knows us so personally. And in that small miracle, that's exactly what Nathanael needed in that moment. And the last thing we see at the end of this passage, towards verse 51 and 52, Jesus describes himself as the stairway to heaven. This is a beautiful picture. He's showing and establishing from the start that I'm the one that will give you access to the Father. I really trust that as you read this passage tonight and as you explore it and you see a bit of Jesus' character, that he really speaks and reveals himself to you. Have a good time.